After you cut your pieces to the right length, you need to make sure that you trim off these corners, okay? When they're cut on the saw, it makes a burr, and that burr gets in the way of the two pieces fitting together. So, especially on this end, you want to make sure you get rid of that or it won't slide into the groove on the last piece. Okay, once that's trimmed off, it'll fit easily into the other groove. Make sure that it's seated all the way in the groove. Don't want to have to come back later and take it out and have to close that up. So the grooves should all be about the same. You notice we have a pattern here. We've got two solid, one vented, two solid, one vented. So that pattern is going to repeat all the way down. Okay, when you're putting the screws in, they need to stay close to the edge, about 1/4 of an inch from the end of your piece. If you get them too far out here, then they won't hide underneath a piece of fascia. So get this right where it needs to go. You notice I'm not putting the screws tight. If I put them tight, they'll actually smash this V-groove and widen it, which makes your piece a little bit wider on the front than it is on the back. Okay, we need to cut a piece that's 12 3/4. So we mark it 12 3/4 and then slide this until we can see our mark. Okay, make sure you cut on the waist side of the line. And we're using a skill saw with the blade turned backwards. If we turn the blade in its normal position, it would try and pull that metal right up through the cutting jig. So we put it backwards and then it will cut. Make sure that you trim off the burr that was created by the saw. The saw is kind of smashing the metal instead of cutting as it goes through, and so it's always going to leave that burr. You want a nice clean edge so they fit together easy. And we're going to take it up to the corner and mark it in place. So I'm going to put it in there, make sure it's tight. And I'm going to mark about 1/4 of an inch away from the wall. Okay, that's where my bend line is going to be. I'm actually going to put a tab on this and bend it up so that it will hold this piece of metal down against the J. We don't want the J flopping, or the Soffit material flopping around inside the J. Now we're going to put it in the other direction so that we can get the mark for length. And I'm going to mark it about 1/4 of an inch away from the wall, or from the back of the J channel. It's a really good idea to mark the waist so that you don't lose track and accidentally cut it on the wrong side. Okay, so this was our bend line. This is where we need to cut it. We're also going to mark this side. Okay, I'm just going to mark this line so that I can see right where our bend is supposed to be. because I need to cut all the way in to that bend point. It won't bend without being cut. Now it's just a matter of cutting out the waste. If this gets stubborn, it's waste, so just bend it out of the way. Remember, we're going to cut all the way to the bend line. Using the hemming tool, we're going to bend. You need to make sure you press it against so you get a good sharp bend. Okay, so now we've got a bend on the edge of that will hold it down tight against the J-channel. I've installed the piece temporarily. I'm going to mark where I want my bend. I don't want it to be on the very edge because then it will just slide up past. Well, that mark is for length, but just like we did over on this corner, I need to create a bend. So I need to cut my piece longer by 3/8 of an inch. Okay, so this is where my cut's going to be, and then I'll bend it on that line. Okay, I'm going to use a utility knife to make this cut. Now we're going to take it over to the brake and bend it up in this direction so it'll hold itself down against the J. Okay, bring it to the brake, make sure that we're on our marks, put a 90-degree bend in it. Now it's ready to install. Okay, you can see how this bend holds holds the soffit material down away from the framing and tight against the J. Okay, we need to cut the last piece for this. So we're going to either measure it and cut it about a 1/4 inch short, or I can just hold it up there if I have a short piece and mark it, which is what I've done here. I'm going to put it in my jig, just looking down through this slot, line up my mark, and slot, and then make my cut. Okay, that piece should be the right length now. We're going to go up and measure where we need to cut it for width. Okay, just like all my other pieces, I need to trim off the burr that was created by the saw so that the two pieces will slide together easily. I'm going to take it up and hold it in place. That's the most accurate way to find out the length. So I'm going to slip that in. right down here. When we cut this piece, we don't want to just cut it off because it'll just rattle in that J channel. We want to make a 90-degree bend 3/8 of an inch from our mark, so we're cutting it actually wider than we measured, and then we're going to bend that over so that it holds the piece down into the J, just like we did here and here. So measuring from this bend, I'm 2 1/4 inches to my first mark. So I'm going to mark that the same on the other end, 2 1/4 inches from the bend, and then I'm going to go another 3/8. Okay, and this one was just a guess, so I'm going to actually measure 3/8. Looks like it's about right there. Okay, so we're going to take those two marks, we're going to go over to the break. So we'll bend that as soon as we get it cut. Okay, I'm using a square to just mark over. It was 2 1/4 plus 3/8, so 2 5/8. And I marked that on both ends. Okay. Now we're going to take my square and lay it between those two marks. And make our cut. It's going to take several cuts. The first one, just kind of mark it, and then should just break right off. So now we have the piece. We're going to go put our bend in it. Okay, we've got marks, but those marks need to be on the back side. So I'm going to come over 3/8. On both ends. And then we'll take it to the brake. Okay, push the handles back on the brake. Remember, you have to put the skinny end in. If you try and do it the other way, like this rubber edge will just catch on this piece and it'll smash it and ruin it. So always the skinny end in. Set that right at 3/8, and we're going to bend it 90 degrees. Actually, a little bit more than 90 because it has to fit under the roof. Okay. Now we're going to insert it up there. Bend it a little bit to get it into the J, and just let it snap right up into place. And we should be able to just slide it over. And we'll probably put another screw in and we'll be done. Okay, you can see that I've inserted that piece, and because of the bend we put in it, it stays down tight against the J and gives us a nice tight fit along that edge.